Let's jump right into today's explainer, where we're breaking down a seriously chilling, purportedly true encounter. It's one of those stories that perfectly illustrates exactly why some local legends are, well, best left completely untested. So buckle up because we are diving straight into the darkness of Highway 44.
Let me ask you something. Have you ever driven down a pitch-black highway and just felt like you weren't alone? I want you to really picture that utter isolation. You're on a long drive in the dead of night. Your eyes are burning with fatigue. The only sound is the heavy rumble of your engine, and literally every passing shadow is playing terrifying tricks on your mind.
Which brings us to our first section, Midnight on Highway 44.
Here we meet our protagonist, Kamlesh. He's an exhausted truck driver navigating the treacherous stretches of Highway 44. It is dead in the middle of the night, he's totally surrounded by dense forest, and there's not a single other headlight in sight. It's just Kamlesh, his heavy truck, and this dark, trembling road stretching out ahead of him.
And then, out of nowhere, the completely ordinary becomes absolutely terrifying. A white figure abruptly appears right dead center in Kamlesh's headlights. He slams on the brakes, tires screeching into the utter silence of the forest. But when he peers out the windshield, the road is completely empty, just gone. As he's sitting there, frantically trying to convince himself it was just a hallucination, a trick of the exhausted mind, he gets startled by a voice. And it's coming from the back of his truck.
It's a woman's voice. She says, "Brother, please stop. I have lost my way." Kamlesh whips around, his heart just pounding out of his chest, and he sees this blurry figure standing in the dim, eerie red glow of his taillights. And right here, the narrative forces him, and us, into a deeply unsettling moral dilemma.
So let's move right into our next section, the mysterious hitchhiker.
Now, Kamlesh is paralyzed. He is terrified of local lore about deceptive spirits, specifically ghosts with backward feet setting traps for travelers. He tells her to just go away, but the woman, she counters his absolute panic with this incredibly heartbreaking plea. She points to her blistered feet, claims to be a totally exhausted mother, and hits him with a really logical question. If she were a ghost, would she really be speaking so politely? She says she just wants to get home to her children.
Empathy barely wins out here. Reluctantly, Kamlesh agrees to help her out, but he establishes some super strict rules to keep her isolated. Number 1, you sit in the back under the tarpaulin. Number 2, you knock when we reach your stop. And 3, the big one, absolutely do not look toward the front cabin. He's desperately setting up this fragile, terrifying boundary, basically hoping against hope to keep himself safe.
That brings us to Section 3, a tragic backstory.
So this eerie journey gets underway, and almost immediately the atmosphere grows unbearably heavy. I mean, Kamlesh can literally feel the truck dragging. He reaches over, tries to flick on the radio just to break that awful silence, but he gets nothing but harsh, hissing static. And then, piercing right through the mechanical drone of the engine, comes this sudden, agonizing sobbing from the back of the truck. Breaking his own strict rules, Kamlesh slides open the back cabin window just a tiny fraction, just hoping to somehow calm his weeping passenger. And through that tiny gap, she utters this absolutely devastating line. "The one who promised to hold my hand forced me to die halfway." She then shares a completely heartbreaking story. She talks about being violently abused and basically discarded by her own husband, all because doctors told her she couldn't have children. Listening to this pour out of her, Kamlesh is deeply moved. I mean, who wouldn't be, right? He assures her that she has value, tells her her husband was completely wrong, and swears he's going to drop her off safely at her destination. And it's brilliant, because for a brief moment, the supernatural threat seems to just fade away, replaced by this sad but totally grounded human connection. Kamlesh totally lets his guard down, completely lulled into a false sense of security. Okay, moving to Section 4, the never-ending road. Literally, just as Kamlesh relaxes and shifts gears, the woman suddenly screams at the absolute top of her lungs for him to stop the truck. She tells him she's finally arrived at her village, a place she calls Sati Gati. Kamlesh looks around at the completely desolate, incredibly foggy jungle and points out that there is literally nothing out here. But she just steps out of the truck, walks into the darkness, and vanishes. Poof! Into thin air. Visibly shaken by her entirely unnatural disappearance, Kamlesh gets back on the road. He's trying to convince himself she was just a wandering, troubled soul, but he's about to realize he is trapped in a terrifying loop.
The panic sets in.
Kamlesh drives forward, hitting 80 kilometers an hour as he passes a broken, rusted sign for Sadigati. He pushes it to 90, absolutely desperate to leave this area behind, but the dark road just refuses to end. He floors it, crossing 100 kilometers an hour, the engine is absolutely screaming, and then, no way, the exact same Satigati sign appears again in his headlights. The sheer, undeniable terror of realizing the road is looping completely shatters his mind.
And then, crash. Between the wet mud and the incredible speed, the truck violently smashes into a massive boulder. The entire front of the truck is pulverized, the engine is smoking, and Kamlesh smacks his head hard on the steering wheel before tumbling out into the freezing night, bleeding. He scrambles up, trying to flag down passing vehicles. A car speeds by so incredibly fast the wind practically knocks him over. Another truck approaches, blares this terrifying horn, and nearly crushes him as it just speeds away into the night. He is completely, utterly abandoned in the dark.
Let's look at Section 5, a desperate phone call.
So Kamlesh pulls out his phone. It is literally his last lifeline. He somehow manages to call his boss. With a totally dry throat, he explains the bizarre, impossible events, the woman, the looping road, the horrific crash. And his boss, surprisingly, rather than brushing him off as crazy, takes it incredibly seriously. He immediately demands visual proof. He tells Kamlesh to send him photos of the truck and the location right that very second so he can arrange for an emergency rescue.
And that brings us to our final section, the chilling photograph.
Kamlesh snaps photos from every possible angle in the pitch dark and sends them off. The phone rings back almost immediately. It's the boss, and he is absolutely frantic. He barks out 3 strict, life-saving orders. 1, get out of there now. Abandon the truck. 2, stop any vehicle or just start walking to the nearest village. And 3, and this is the crucial one, whether you hear someone calling your name or crying, do not look back under any circumstances. Without explaining why, the terrified boss issues these commands. And Kamlesh, he blindly follows them. He runs through the night, refusing to look over his shoulder, until he finally, thankfully, reaches the safety of a nearby village.
Fast forward 2 days. Kamlesh has survived, but he still has absolutely no idea why his boss panicked so hard on that call. He finally meets his boss in person, who is just looking at him with this lingering, deep-seated terror. The story delivers its final paralyzing twist right here by showing us exactly what the boss saw in that final photograph and exactly what was hidden in the dark all along. The boss pulls out his smartphone and shows Kamlesh the picture, and there it is. Sitting right next to his empty cabin seat in the photograph was the terrifying, laughing woman. She had never been in the back of the truck, not once. Despite all of Kamlesh's strict rules, despite his locked doors, she had been sitting right beside him, inside the cabin, staring at him for the entire agonizing journey.
Talk about a phenomenal twist, right? It completely recontextualizes the whole explainer. Every single time he felt the truck get heavy, every time he heard her voice, she was literally inches away from him. This account leaves us with such a lingering sense of dread and a pretty stark reminder, some roads carry a lot more fear than destinations. So I have to ask, the next time you're driving alone at night, are you absolutely sure every passenger is human?